Hey everyone, welcome back to Mini Bike Mike's Garage. So we're back on the old Honda CT70 chop, and you can tell I've made a little bit of progress from the last video. I have got the tank all welded into the frame, solid. I've got the front end all welded back on, so it's good and solid. And so after I got all that in place, I started trimming off some of the excess that I had on the frame, and I made a I won't call it seat pan, but this is where the seat is going to sit. I wanted to strengthen this up, fill it all in. So I think what my plan is to cut a piece of plywood, 3/4 of an inch, half inch, 3/4 of an inch thick, put a little bit of foam on it, then cover that, and then that will sit basically this same shape to cover this. And then that'll give me something, a little bit of cushion to sit on, since this thing is pretty rigid. But we'll see how that goes. And when I cut that piece of plywood, I'm probably going to contour it around this fender to kind of close in some of these ugly corners and stuff that I have. I'll bring you in and show you a little closer here in just a second. What I'm working on now is the rear fender. I want something to keep my ass from scooting down into that tire and getting caught up into that. So we're going to use a CT70 fender, because I'm trying to use as many CT70 parts as I can. I'm going to have an engine guard on it, and some guys are like, oh, that's taken away from it. But I want, when somebody looks at it, there be no doubt in their mind that most of it is Trail 70 stuff. So I'm going to use a CT70 rear fender, and I've made a little bracket that I just have bolted onto it, and then this bracket will get welded. I'm going to weld it right up in here, and that way I could actually take the fender off if I need to for any reason, because I've got it it'll unbolt underneath here. And then we're going to come up with some kind of something off of the rear here, come up and across to support that, so that my weight doesn't push it down into the wheel. And then we'll mount a tail light onto that and so forth. So anyway, but that's what I'm going to be working on. I'm getting ready to weld that, tack that on there, and get it all squared away. The front end, I still haven't really messed with that yet. It's sitting on there. This is all kind of bolted together, tacked together, but I want to get everything from here back kind of lined out before I start moving on to that. And this fender, I think is the last bit of fabrication I'm going to have to do back here. Now then eventually we're going to need to figure out brake pedal, or somehow we're going to activate a brake. I'm not going to run a front brake. But anyway, so let me bring you in just a little bit closer so you can see it. So you can see I just have a pan welded and tacked in there. I cut out where the bolts were for the seat hinge, so I wanted to cover that. So that'll get covered up. Everything from here back. And like I said, I'm going to contour around to cover up these corners with the seat. So that's all looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. The tank turned out really well. It's nice and ugly like I wanted it to be. I actually, underneath here, took a couple pieces of steel, round bars, and welded them and bridged that gap so that won't crack apart. If it does, boy, it's really gonna have to do some work to break that apart. I've got that pretty solid. And then the frame is actually welded to the tank in some spots. So the tank is actually acting kind of as a backbone, giving us a little bit more support. So, all right, I think I'm gonna shut you guys off, and I'm gonna get that fender kind of welded in place, and then I'll bring you back and show you that. Okay, so I'm trying to finish up this back fender. I've got a plate welded on, and I've got the fender bolted down here using the original 2 holes that the fender mounted from. But obviously we're going to need some support back here. And so I don't know if you guys can see it, but I've laid out some pieces, and I'm thinking sissy bar. I think I'll shorten this. I don't think I'll need it quite that high. And I'm thinking I'm going to run some rebar perpendicular 90 degrees here. So something like that angle. Come up, curve in, go up and around this piece, and then back down the other side, and then there'll be a crossbar that'll come across and catch this rear hole that's already in the fender where the taillight mounted. Catch that, so that'll support that. So if I lean on it, you know, hopefully it won't move. And then to stay with the CT70 theme, I think I'm going to use a stock K0 tail light, and I've made this specifically the width for that to fit, and just mount that in there. Yeah, I thought about cutting something out in here, but I'm at a loss. I don't know what to cut out in there. You know, I thought about just some circles. Thought about writing something in there. I don't know. So then I got thinking, well, then it won't read the same if I put something. So what I'm thinking about doing is just using this solid piece, welding it in, and then if I ever want to have something written there, I'll cut out another piece just slightly narrower so that it will fit in, and I can just tack it, and you'll see the letters, but it won't shine all the way through, so it wouldn't read backwards on the other side. So if you got any ideas on what I could put in this area, hit me up with a comment. Let me know what you think. But for right now, I think I'm just going to leave it solid. I got to go back in the shop, heat up some rebar, see if I can bend the rebar around that. But basically, we're just going to sandwich this between the rebar. Go for that kind of look. So, wish me luck. Let's hope that goes as, in my mind, it should be easy, but it always is easier when in your mind. So, let me go see how it works. Well, there's the first part of it. I've got that tacked in there. So now I have to go back, and I have to, at this point, spread these out because it's narrower. I've got to be able to go around a fender. I'm trying to keep that even is going to be tough. I got to kick it out and then back down. Equal amounts on both sides, so. But I think that's turned out pretty well. Hopefully that'll look okay. You know, on this bike, I don't know that you can go wrong with how it looks. It's just kind of ugly all over, so. Well, give me your thoughts. Give me comments. Now, of course, obviously, by the time I see them, this post, I'll have probably gone ahead and done what I want to do anyway, but just give me your thoughts. I think it's a little bit to the left. I think I need to shorten the post on the right just slightly. Try and get around here where you can see it. I'm gonna take the phone out of the stand. Hang on just a second. So I'm not kicking that around. So that's the angle that it's kind of swept back. I don't know. Let me know what you think. You know, it'll be, by the time you see this video, I'll have attached it permanently, but I haven't so far. It's not welded. It's going to get welded. You can see where I put a little mark here and on the other side. And then I'm going to weld. I got this little piece of angle that needs to be welded to the flat there, so that when I take the wheel off, I can take that bolt out and the 2 bolts underneath there and actually take that fender off if we need to for any reason. Now, there's no provision for a license plate. The license plate is so much wider than everything else. I don't like the look of it, so I'm not even going to put a license plate mount. I know some guys, you know, do one of these numbers and so forth, but I don't have a title for this. I'll probably ride it on the street up and down to my car show, but it's not, you know, it's not like going to go out on rides and so forth. So anyway, let me get it mounted on there, but let me know what you think. Well, this is where I'm going to stop today. My work day here in the shop is kind of coming to an end. I got some things I need to do, so I threw some parts back on it. I got that sissy bar. It's not permanently mounted. I could cut it back off if I needed to, but somewhat have it in place. I wanted to throw the engine back in it, get an idea just how we're looking. We have a long way to go yet. We still have foot pegs and exhaust and brakes. Oh my, we've got, I've got some things still to figure out, and I haven't even thought about this front end yet, really. I just kind of have some pieces tacked welded together there. We'll have to come up with something a little bit better, but we're getting there. I'm pretty happy with it. I think it's going to ride like a log wagon, but that's okay. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up for today. We will continue next time I'm here in the shop. It may be a couple days before I can pick this up again, and we will start tackling some of the other things. Like I said, exhaust I need to think about, and pegs. I need to get it down off the table and see exactly where my feet kind of end up. But I'm actually thinking about coming off of the cradle, doing a bar and actually having my feet up here. We'll see. I got to get it down off the table and see how I fit on it. So, all right, I'll pick it up in a couple days. The next thing I want to work on this chopper build is the chain guard. And as I've mentioned a few times, I want to use as many CT70 parts as I can on this build, so you really get the idea that it is a CT70 or Trail 70, just modified a little bit. So I want to use a stock CT70 chain guard, but it's obviously going to take a little bit of modification. It's supposed to mount here and here, but we can't, the chain is in our way there. So I put the bolts in the frame to where this side of the frame bolts to this bottom cradle. Well, a couple of them are in my way. I think this one I can actually use in the mounting spot for this front bolt. And then the other one, we're going to have to put a hole up here someplace and put a second one. But this bolt hits on the back side and it holds the chain guard away from the frame, and that's not what I want. I want this to be flush, just like if it was stock on a CT70. So I've taken the nuts off of these 2 bolts. That's going to go there. Taking the other one out lets me push it flush to the frame. I think I want it somewhere, you know, in that line, kind of in line with that chain. And so obviously we're going to have to do some trimming here, and then we're going to actually have to weld on another section, because I don't think this bottom hole and this is going to reach down to the bottom. These Life and engines actually have an unused, already tapped threaded hole right there. So we just got to be able to get, where were we? We were putting it up here. something around there. So you can see where we've got to add a little bit of an extension. But the first thing I'm going to do is go through and make some marks where I need to trim this to get it to fit this life and cover. I'm not going to take you guys through that. Go back, do a search on my channel and for CT70 chain guard on a Lifen. I've got 2 or 3 videos of that, so I'm not going to bore you with that. But I'm going to take a few minutes and get this trimmed out and get it to where it fits. And then I might bring you back when we go to do this and final fitment. But let me do a little work and see if I can get it up in there a little bit tighter. All right, so here's where I think I'm at. There, that's gonna go there. So might do a little more trimming right here. But I've got this little piece, because I'm not reaching the bolt down here, that I'm going to weld on to the bottom of that, and then obviously shape it, round it, kind of match what we've got. Drill a hole in it right there. Yeah, so I think that's what I'm going to do next, is get this piece attached to the bottom of it. But I'm liking that. I think that's going to look okay. I've still got some shaping to do, but as you can see, I've got a little piece welded on there and just kind of half-ass shaped it. But that'll go something like that, and then I'll actually weld on the back side of this piece I just welded on. I'll once I get this lined out, I'll get a measurement for a small piece of round tubing to weld on the back to create a spacer so that this doesn't move. Something like that. So I've got a little shaping to do, clean this up, get it a little closer, doesn't need all this excess. Get this line to kind of come down to where it matches. And then put a bolt right there. So I've still got, I think I got just a hair more here that I want to take off. Take off that black line. So, all right, getting closer, but I got a little more work to do. Here's my finished product. I've got that welded on. I welded on a length of 3/4 inch long round tube, and that will hopefully space this out that I can tighten this up. Yeah, that'll tighten that up, hold it away from the chain. I can put that in there. I am going to hold off on putting a bolt here. I don't think I'm going to have a problem with chain slapping that chain guard, but in case I need to make some adjustments, I don't want to I don't want to drill another hole in my frame and then not use it. So I think I'm going to hold off and just use this bolt and this bolt for right now. And then once I've ridden it and make sure that we're not going to be slapping that chain guard, so we don't have to try and, you know, move the chain guard or do something else to it. I know it'll mess my gap up here because I've got it, but that's just the way it is. If I have to add something more back in here, I can. Having the little tack weld thing just kind of goes along with the whole theme. So now I have to see if I can get a nut on that. And I don't know if I can get my hand in there. It would be easy to do if the engine wasn't in the way. The problem is, you know, I sealed up everything on top. How far back are you guys scooted? You're not scooted. You know, I've sealed this up here. I can't get down into the frame now to put my hand down there to hold a nut. I can't really reach it from underneath. if the engine wasn't here, I could just do it right here. That'd be easy. One of the other issues is the breather tube is right behind that. I can't quite get my hand. Nope, I just dropped the nut. I can't quite get my hand in there. Oh yeah, that's going to be almost impossible. It's not going to be any more possible to put the bolt in from the other direction either. Okay, hang on just a second. Well, I'm going to try something. I don't know if it's going to work or not. I'm going to take a little piece of, I took a strand out of a piece of copper wire. Should have probably got a longer one. And I am going to attempt to wrap it around this bolt. Oh, it's right there. I'm just not the right angle. There, I did it. Let's see. I had seen people do that in the past. Wrap that wire around there like that, but that's the first time I've ever attempted to do it. Okay. Strip that out. All right. I like that. And like I said, we'll figure that last bolt out when the time comes, but that just lets me put one more CT70 part on it. For those of you who didn't quite catch what I was doing with that copper wire and that bolt, I ran that copper wire up through that hole, and then I took and wrapped the end around the bolt, something like that, and then pulled it up and through and into that hole. So that's a tip. It's not my tip. I picked it up from somebody else, but maybe if you're trying to get a bolt in a hole that you can't reach like that, that worked for me. One of the last things I guess I'll show on this video and kind of wrap it up is the exhaust. Now, I did not build this exhaust. I had this on the shelf. If you go back, oh gosh, late summer of 2022, so 6 or 7 months ago, I redid a Honda S65, did a video on it. I think we might have swapped an engine and did some things, and this was the exhaust that my son had put on that bike when he built it back around 2015, and I went with a different style exhaust. So I had this on the shelf, and I just thought, man, that thing kind of fits this bike. And so I just bolted it on. I had to move the little bracket that's right here to line up with one of the holes that I had drilled in the frame, but got that on there. So I think we're down to brakes and shifting, and then the back half of this thing will be kind of done and we can move on to the forks. But I think we're gonna wrap it up on the video today. I think the last thing we're going to do, I threw a carburetor on it. I've yet to put fuel in this, so I want to check this tank, make sure it doesn't have any leaks, put some fuel in it. So while I'm doing that, we might as well plug that on there, and let's see if it'll fire up. Put that back wheel under some power, make sure that chain's going to stay on. to get it to start, we're going to need some electrical power. So I keep these kits. I'll put a link in the description for this. This is something I buy off of Amazon. And it is pretty much complete everything that you need to get one of these Lifens to run. It's got a small harness, it's got a coil, it's actually got a key switch, a CDI, it's even got a kill button, it even comes with a spark plug. So, looks like I've got the coil already plugged in. Plug it in here. Find the wiring for the engine. Pull that out here. Get rid of that. Let's see, somewhere. Okay, I got to take off. I made an adapter for this wiring harness that we don't need. We don't need that. This will plug directly into wiring on the engine, and it's just match colors. Okay, so that should give us give a spark. Turn the key on. So we need to get some fuel. Put some fuel in that. I guess before I put fuel in it, I ought to shut the petcock off. All right, I hope this doesn't leak. You know, all that work I did to build that crazy tank. Stop, that ought to be enough. I'm gonna grab a catch jar before I hook that fuel line to the carburetor. Let's make sure that there's not any crap or anything in the bottom of that tank. Okay, that looks pretty good. Plug that on there. And I haven't shortened any of this to, this is just kind of see if it will go. Let's see, I think these are, put that down. Choke on. See if I can break a knuckle here. I'm gonna move this fuel can, hang on a second. Oh, wow. The Kickstarter hits the ground. I'll have to lean the bike over that way to kickstart it. Did I turn the key on? I don't remember. Nope, I had. Is that off? Okay, that's on. The key won't come out. All right. So there is on. Okay. Oh, there she started to go. All right, I'm going to go get something to block it up and a screwdriver to maybe idle it down a little bit. And then we're gonna throw it in gear, see what happens. But let me go get a couple pieces I need first. Well, so far so good as far as leaks. I don't see any wetness or anything underneath, no drip. So I think my fuel tank is actually holding fuel. I'm not seeing anything. All right, so I've got a stand kind of under it. We're gonna see where the carburetor's at. I've lowered the table down because I busted my daggone knuckle hitting that cable, so I'm not gonna do that again. Make sure that's on. Love it. Sounds great. Let's all right, first time in gear. All right, guys, there we go. I like it. Seems like we're moving okay here. Everything seems like it's going to be in line enough that I hopefully won't have an issue with jumping chains and doing those sorts of things. It's interesting as I've added parts, how the bolts that I used to bolt the frame, which originally in my vision, you know, they were a very prominent part, but they have disappeared. You don't really see them at all, you know, now that we've added things and so forth. So kind of interesting how you're, you know, or at least mine anyway, my initial vision for the bike is kind of changing and evolving as things get added to it and parts get put on. But yeah, we've still got a few more videos to go. Oh my goodness, we may have 3, 4 more videos. I'm not really sure. I think the next thing I want to tackle, now that we've got the go going, now we need to work on the woe. We need to work on the woe, and we need to work on how we're going to shift it. And I want to do something different. I don't want just a standard suicide shift. You know, my feet are probably going to be up here in front of the engine type of thing. So, because I'm going to be too cramped having my feet down at the bottom. So we're going to do something different with a shifter. So I don't know. I got some thoughts in my head, but we'll have to see how they play out on putting, you know, making them applicable on the bike. So, all right, guys. Appreciate you following along. I hope you enjoy this thing. Seems like you guys do. I'm having a tremendous amount of fun with it. It's just different. It's stupid, you know. So one of these days we're going to ride it. All right, guys, thanks for following along. I'll see you on the next video.